be talking about the Samsung Note 7 recall case. We would be focusing on the ethical and legal aspects of the case. Here is a picture of the new Samsung Galaxy Note 7 on the left, and on the right is a picture taken after the phone caught fire. Samsung Group is a South Korean multinational conglomerate headquartered in Seoul, South Korea. It comprises of numerous affiliated businesses, most of them united under the Samsung brand, and it is the largest South Korean business conglomerate. Samsung has a large market share in consumer electronics such as televisions, smartphones, air conditioners, laptops, microwaves, and refrigerators. One of the first and most widely accepted phones which kickstarted the large display trend was the Samsung Galaxy Note launched in 2011, which was a huge commercial success. With time, phones grew, and the Samsung Notes were not the only phones having a large size, but they still had a different feel and charisma to them. After the huge commercial success of Samsung Galaxy Note, Samsung surely had to release a refined version each year. And then came the Samsung Galaxy Note 7. Now let's talk about what happened with the Note 7. Samsung had multiple battery vendors for its flagship Note 7 phone. Batteries from company A malfunctioned due to a design issue which were fitted in phones shipped to the United States and most other countries. The negative electrode components in the upper right corner of the battery deflected, leading to the short circuit and the phone catching fire. The batteries from another company B, likely ATL, a third-party battery vendor that supplied phones that were shipped to China, malfunctioned due to the manufacturing issues. During welding, bumps formed that poked through the barriers in the battery and made direct contact with the negative electrode. This caused the batteries to malfunction. This problem led to Samsung recalling over 2.5 million handsets worldwide. 96 handsets had issues with fire and over 13 people were injured. The phones also caught fire on board flights, leading to a ban on Note 7 on all flights. Here is a graph highlighting Samsung's losses in the smartphone business. It clearly shows a decline this year with the problems with Note 7. One of the major reasons for failure was an incompatible battery being used for this smartphone design. So here is a picture of the battery design. Samsung just didn't recall the Note 7 once. It had to recall it twice. Samsung and Consumer Product Safety Commission recalled all the Galaxy Note 7 devices in the United States on September 12, 2016. After the recall, the replacement devices were given with a battery manufactured by a Chinese vendor, which is also a manufacturer for the iPhone. The replacement batteries also started catching fire in October, and again the sales of Note 7 were suspended. Finally, on October 11, 2016, Samsung officially announced that they will end the production of Samsung Galaxy Note 7 and the users would return their devices.
We have seen how Samsung Note 7 phones caught fire and the reasons behind it. Now let's dig deep into the analysis part of it. We as a team will uncover the legal and ethical aspects of Samsung Note 7 case. In legal analysis, we will study the class action lawsuits filed against Samsung and the acts which can be referenced. We will also go through the stakeholder analysis to see who all were the stakeholders, how everyone was affected, and what all things were on stake. In legal analysis, we'll study and apply the popular ethical theories learnt in class, assignments, and from the book. We'll go through utilitarian theory, virtue theory, individualism, engineering code of ethics, and Kantian theory.
Now let's move on to the legal analysis of the Note 7 recall. I'm going to talk you through the various legal frameworks that are applicable to this case, as well as give you a brief overview of the stakeholder analysis. So according to the CPSC, which is the US Consumer Product Safety Commission's investigation, the likely causes of the disaster were faulty batteries, bad battery design, inefficient testing mechanisms, and obviously the rush to gain the first mover advantage over its consumers, over its competitors. Now, because this case is fairly recent, the team could only gather information pertaining to the various counts of class actions that are filed against Samsung. So the first of which is the breach of express warranty, which is also closely associated with product liability. With respect to Samsung, it expressly warranted its customers that their phones were of high quality and at minimum safe. But they breached this warranty by selling defective devices. Consumers, on the other hand, suffered both physical as well as monetary damages. Particularly in this case, Samsung's warranty limitation is unenforceable because they knowingly sold a defective product. The next is the common law fraud class action. Here, Samsung made material misstatements about the availability of replacement of the Note 7 devices. Customers were fraudulently induced to continue incurring monthly charges on phones that they could never use, nor could they replace. Samsung made these misstatements with the knowledge of falsity and with an intention to induce its customers. Customers, on the other hand, relied on these misstatements that were made by Samsung. In the third type of class action, which was filed, was the breach of duty of good faith and fair dealing. Samsung not only breached the covenant of good faith by failing to notify its customers about the replacement of the devices and their availability, but also acted in a bad faith to deny the users the benefit of bargain. We also put together a stakeholder analysis for the sake of this case. So the key stakeholders in the Galaxy Note 7 recall case are the customers. So they are the largest stakeholders and their safety is at risk. The recall saga played a huge role in diminishing the trust they placed on Samsung. Network carriers such as AT&T, Verizon, Sprint, and T-Mobile, they also suffered huge losses, both financial as well as loss in the consumer base. Distributors and sellers had to employ additional manpower to combat the recall, which in turn caused them to suffer huge financial losses. In fact, the battery manufacturers were another segment whose reputation got tarnished. The Samsung battery supplier were actually the same as the ones who manufactured iPhone batteries, so there was a direct pressure from iPhone customers as well as Apple Inc. The company Samsung in itself is a key stakeholder, and not only is their reputation at stake, but ever since the debacle, the company has suffered huge financial losses along with the loss of Samsung fan base. The ethical analysis section will be covered next.
I'll walk you through the ethical analysis of the Samsung's Note 7 recall case. Ethics is a philosophical discipline, and as a philosophical discipline, ethics is divisible into numerous theories. For our project, we decided to perform analysis of Samsung's Note 7 debacle with respect to the various ethical principles such as justice theory, Kantian theory, virtue ethics, and utilitarian theory. Let's begin with the justice theory. Theory of justice is a political philosophy that attempts to solve a problem of justice by utilizing a variant of the familiar device of the social contract. Veil of ignorance is a method under justice theory that helps to determine the morality of the political issues. The two principles of justice theory stress on equal rights for everyone and an arrangement of the social and economic equalities in such a way that benefit greatest to the least advantaged members of the society. Let's find out how Samsung failed to align the launch of Note 7 with respect to the justice theory. Phone launch was not postponed even after knowing the associated uncertainties. Project evaluations were not done as per the expected standards. Assessments were not done conventionally, thus putting customer safety at risk. Next, we discuss Kantian theory. This theory emphasizes that the rightness or wrongness of actions doesn't depend on their consequences, but on whether they fulfill our duty. Under Kantian ethics, the entire process of the launch of the product holds a significant importance. In case of Samsung, there was a lack of the informed decision making on all fronts of the issue. They also kept public misinformed. To avoid media and public outrage, Samsung quickly tried to mitigate the problem, but they did so with the more regard to their interest than to the interest of the customers. Also, Samsung did not respect the public's ability to make rational decisions about the controversy. Without being certain, they declared replacements to be safe and addressed public with certainty that problem was fixed. It was completely unethical on Samsung's part to have customers believe on anything other than company's own uncertainty. Let's discuss about virtue ethics. Virtue ethics is an approach to ethics that emphasizes an individual's character as a key element of ethical thinking rather than the rules about the acts themselves or their consequences. It focuses more on the means rather than the ends. Samsung displayed poor character by being impatient with their deadlines. Release of the faulty product was a result of their lack of moderation. Further impatience is what caused Samsung to release a faulty replacement. Samsung tried to overcome the damage to keep the sales going out of greed. Samsung showed no concern for Note 7 customers. By sending out a risky replacement without analyzing the defects, they acted out of their own self-interest. Samsung broke the trust of the customers when they said that they have solved the problem. Let's discuss the utilitarian theory with respect to Samsung. The theory itself stresses that business action should aim to maximize the happiness in the long run for all conscious beings that are affected by the business action. With respect to this theory, the focus should be on maximizing the pleasure and minimizing the pain of the stakeholders. Before release, Samsung should have assessed possible risks and rewards of adding a new technology into a small device. Overheating would have been an obvious risk to evaluate thoroughly. Samsung paid more attention to the product launch deadline. Safety and satisfaction of the stakeholders was considered of secondary importance. Let's discuss about the promissory estoppel. Promissory estoppel is a legal principle that a promise is enforceable by law, even if made without formal consideration. When a promisor has made a promise to a promisee, he relies on that promise to his subsequent detriment. Samsung has an unsaid promise to promote the public safety and keep its consumers safe from any hazards that may arise from the use of its products. Consumers have relied on a promise of Samsung's commitment to safety. Let's evaluate Samsung for the 4 ethical lenses. 4 ethical lenses help us to identify how core values are prioritized when ethical decisions are made. Whether these values focus on end results, universal rights, relationships in the community, reputation, or character. After evaluating Samsung for each of these 4 lenses, we came to the conclusion that Samsung clearly based its judgment on utilitarian and Kant theory. Samsung's sole motive was to provide Note 7 for the greater good of its consumers. The product was supposed to introduce them to the new futures. Samsung repeatedly failed to adhere to these principles. Even though the company tried to repair the damage by providing replacement phones for the good of its customers, yet it failed to comply with the basic utilitarianism. Let's find out how golden mean between the extremes applies in case of Samsung. In the past, Samsung have had many successful launches, including the 7 successful launches of Note series from the original Galaxy Note to Galaxy Note 5, including Note 2, Note 3, Note 3 Neo, Note 4, and Note Edge in a short span of 4 years, from 2011 to 2015. Samsung relied way too much on the past successes of the Note series. In terms of failures, Note 7 was a major fiasco. Galaxy Note 7 was afflicted by repeated manufacturing problems with their internal batteries, which led to the incidents in which they overheated and combusted. After replacement models experienced similar incidents, Note 7 was officially discontinued on 11th of October 2016, and all devices were recalled globally. Hence, past successes can't be used as a benchmark to ignore the future risks.
Let's look at the implications that came along with this issue. Third quarter of 2016 was the worst financial quarter for all time for Samsung, and Samsung never recovered from that. Losses for Samsung Electronics were beyond imagination. One mistake and every fame, every glory was gone. They had to lose the money they invested in technological and human resources. Note 7 phones were expecting a sale of over 19 million devices. The failure just wiped down a huge chunk of around $21 billion from its market value. The Samsung users, both new and loyal, were unhappy, and major Samsung lovers shifted and joined the iPhone customer base. Analysts believe that there will be rise in the iPhone sales and huge downfall in the Samsung phone market and other products also. Samsung's shareholders and investors also had to face the downfall as the aftermath of the recall was not good for Samsung stocks. So, what did we learn from this? Trust should not be broken. In any business, nothing should harm the customer. We should focus on giving away good quality product instead of falling for competitive pressure. We could lose everything we gained, reputation, trust, customer base, by just one single mistake. And why not just be ethical? So, digging deep into that, we as a team think that Samsung was too eager to launch their product before the rival Apple releases the next edition of the popular iPhone device. Everyone knows that Apple releases new device around September of the year. Samsung, in a hurry, released Note 7 in August 2016. That was their biggest mistake. But that may not be fully tasted. Quality control and assurance activities were very important at that stage. Samsung released Note 7 by looking that time was running out and schedules were slipping out of their hands, which had disastrous implications at the end. Now let's connect the dots with the engineering code of ethics. So what did we learn? We learned that safety is our first objective. We are responsible for our actions, avoid deceptions by competition, and we engineers run the world, so we should be careful and ethical. We should always do the right thing. So what could have been differently done in case of Samsung? Samsung officials later developed a plan for testing of the devices, especially batteries. They called it the 8-point battery safety check. This includes tests about charging and discharging, change in voltages, accelerated usage, durability, and visual display. So what do we recommend as a team to Samsung? They should have transparency in actions, keeping good quality product and their delivery promises. Testing and quality processes should be in line. Safety audit should be proper, and they should hire ethical people. This may have happened due to not the people's integrity not being to fullest. Samsung need to build reputation again. This is very difficult as people can doubt over the good quality products of Samsung also.